How you guys doing? This is Moballer 12. I know it's been a while, but I just finished my semester. Now I have a little bit more time off to work on these videos and make some more videos for you guys. So for this specific video, I'll be talking about formation of imines. Imines, okay? So let's get right into it. Okay. So in order to form an imine, you need an aldehyde or a ketone, okay, plus a primary amine under acidic conditions, okay, under acidic conditions, and this gives your imine, okay. Something interesting about this reaction is that it's reversible. So now if you have an imine, okay, and you treat it with H plus and water, so acidic conditions, you can generate your aldehyde or ketone. Aldehyde or ketone, that's an ugly or, hold on one second, or ketone plus your primary amine. Okay, so that's one, that's two, and we're going to talk about both of these reactions, okay? So we're going to talk about reaction 1 and reaction 2. So again, aldehyde or ketone plus a primary amine gives you an imine. Now an imine plus H plus H2O gives you an aldehyde or ketone plus your primary amine. So remember, this reaction is reversible. So let's get right into it. In the first part, so to speak, I'll be talking about reaction number 1, where you're forming the imine, okay? So let's get right into it. So first let's talk about what an aldehyde or ketone is. Okay, let's write this up top here. Aldehyde or ketone plus primary amine under acidic conditions gives you imine, okay? So that's that. An aldehyde, first thing, let's talk about some of these parts. Let me define them for you. An aldehyde is where you have one R group attached to the carbon of the carbonyl, and the other piece is an H. So this is your aldehyde right there. Your ketone is where you have two R groups attached to the carbon of your carbonyl. Okay? So there's your aldehyde or ketone. Perfect. Now what is your amine, primary amine? Primary amine is basically a nitrogen that has one carbon group attached to it and two H's. Okay, that's your primary amine. Okay, again, your amine, your primary amine is one nitrogen that has one carbon group attached to it with two H's. Okay, that's your primary amine. And finally, what is an imine? An imine, before I get into it, actually, I wanted to mention something. Okay, how should I do this? Okay, good. So first thing I want to talk about before I get into what an imine is your star carbon. This is something I came up with. Your star carbon is your carbon of your carbonyl. Okay? It's the carbon of your carbonyl. And what you always want to do when you do this reaction is label your carbon of your carbonyl with a star, because that's where all the reaction is. That's how you can determine the product. It's really helpful when you want to draw the product, okay? So again, before I get into the imine, I want to discuss this, and you guys will see the benefit of knowing your star carbon, okay? So make sure you memorize that, make sure you understand it, make sure you label it when you're doing this problem, when doing these types of reactions, and make sure you erase it at the end, because sometimes professors will think that when you label something with a star, it looks kind of like a radical, and you guys will see. So again, star carbon is the carbon of your carbonyl. And let's get right into the imine. So your imine is a carbon, not any type of carbon, it's your star carbon, basically the carbon of your carbonyl, double bonded to a nitrogen with the R group hanging off of it. So that right there is your imine, and you guys will see how this works, okay? Again, right now it's a little bit confusing, and some of you guys may be thinking like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But trust me, make sure you understand this image right here. Make sure you memorize this image. Again, it's your star carbon double bonded to a nitrogen with the R group hanging off the nitrogen. And let's get right into some reactions, okay? So let's just say you have this aldehyde plus this primary amine under acidic conditions, and let's see what product you will form. Okay, the first thing is that you must do in these types of reactions, the first thing I would do personally is label your star carbon. Again, your star carbon is the carbon of your carbonyl, and we'll label it right here. Okay, so there is your star carbon. Okay, perfect. Now that is where the imine is going to be formed. Okay, so to that star carbon we're gonna have a double bonded nitrogen with a R group hanging off of it. So again, remember your imine looks something like this. Damn marker will work. I can show you what your imine will look like. If you remember, I drew this for you guys, right? So that is basically what your product will look like. And again, what I first like to do when I want to draw the product is draw your starting material without the double bonded oxygen. So I'll draw it like this. Have your star carbon there. Okay, so basically that is your starting material without the double bonded O. And now what we will have is a double bonded nitrogen and the R group. So let's draw our double bonded nitrogen and our R group, and in this case our R group is the CH3 group here, and that's it. That's all you need to do to draw your imine, and that right there is your imine. So let's, like I said, make sure you erase that star carbon, because people will think that that's a radical. So that is your product for that specific reaction I showed you guys. So let's go over another example before I get into the second, basically the reverse reaction. Okay, so now if you have, let's just say we have this aldehyde here. So here you have a cyclohexane. Well, let's move this over a little bit. Cyclohexane with an aldehyde, okay? And we'll react it with this nitrogen primary amine. Okay, so you have a 1, 2, 3 carbon group hanging off of this nitrogen right here under this acidic conditions. Okay, so remember your imine looked something like that with the R group, right? So again, in order to draw the product, we like to label our star carbon, which is our carbon of the carbonyl. Let's draw our starting material without the double bonded O. There you go. And let's label it with a star. Perfect. And now what we will do is draw a double bonded nitrogen with the R group. Let's draw our double bonded nitrogen. And our R group in this case is now a 1, 2, 3 carbon chain hanging off of the nitrogen, which is a propyl group. So 1, 2, 3, and there you have it. That is your imine for this reaction. Okay, so again, like I said, make sure you erase that star because it looks like a radical. there you go. So that was the first reaction. Okay. So aldehyde or ketone plus primary amine under acidic conditions gives you your imine. So there's your imine. So let's go and move on to our second reaction. Okay. Let's see, how many minutes has this been? 10 minutes? Damn, that's a lot of minutes. So I'll do this video in 2 parts. So the first part is about 10 minutes and 40 seconds. The second part, hopefully we'll do it pretty soon. Okay, so stay tuned for part number 2, where I'll be talking about the second reaction, which is the reverse reaction.